Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm Ryan Noonan, joined here, as always, by my friends to talk about sides and totals in the best matchups here on the Week 10 NFL slate. Connor Allen, Sharp Clark. Connor, start with you. What's going on, buddy?
Not a whole lot, coming off of probably my worst week of the season, actually, which was kind of disappointing. But, Austin Eckler had me, oh my God, 3 drops, 0 all season. 2 multiple called back by penalties. So definitely some tilting moments, but all in all, not bad. Ready to hop back at it. And, already got to play for Thursday. So, can't complain.
Absolutely brutal. I thought it was a great play. And I know a lot of subscribers did as well. And we're in it. And I saw a lot of people like in the industry, and people either had like receptions or yards, and you fell short basically of everything. But yeah, just I think a really smart play that you fell short. And that's what happens in this game sometimes is you have really strong handicaps, and sometimes it doesn't always go the way that you want it to. It happens at times. Mark, go ahead. What do you got?
I was going to say, I don't believe in mushing, but I felt mushed because there was like 1,000 people on it. And I actually messaged you. I was like, man, this is a super square play, but I really like this. And then I see all these goons on Twitter tweeting it out. I'm like, oh, this is mush. This does not feel right. Lo and behold,
I think it's John Ewing. It used to be like Action Network. I think he did stuff for MGM, and he had like, I was going to send it to you, but I didn't want to make you feel bad. Before the game started, it was like 98% of the bets or the money is on a variation of Eckler receiving, and I was like, oh no, like it's never a good sign. But again, good process, just did not work. Clark, how are we doing today?
Good. Yeah, I found a new way to lose a bet this week with the Texans -2.5, with the score to go ahead and win by 3, but then not kick the extra point because the kicker's injured. Win by 2, so that was a brutal one. But yeah, doing good. I'm much more prepared for this show than I was last week, because last week there was 16 games to process and watch the film for. So this week I've been able to watch all of them. I'm ready to go and ready for week 10.
Yeah, I had the extra point thing in my notes here, and I didn't want to rub salt in the wound. We're going to talk about the Texans here, but yeah, what a brutal way to losing a bet. Tough one for sure. Sometimes it's just not your week when that's what you get in the early slate, and you're like, I don't even want to watch what's going to happen in the afternoon if that's going to happen to me in the early slate. So we're moving on. Week 10, double digits. Crazy how fast this goes. I know it's a grind, and we get like lost in the cadence of the week, and like it gets crazy, and all of a sudden like here we are, and we're in almost the middle of November, and again, like I know some of us and people would hate to hear this and it's ridiculous, and Connor and I talk about it. I hate it. We're so lucky that we get to do this for a living and spend time doing this, and people like bemoan the grind of like content and stuff, and like you get to talk and write and do things in the NFL. It's just wild to me, and I know it goes by to me, it goes by fast. Like I want to hold on to these opportunities to make money because I feel like, when it's gone, like I'm thirsting for it in February. Like I'm not even like enjoying when it ends. It's like I want it back right away. So, but again, week 10 of the regular season, that means we have about another 10, 12 weeks of actual football betting, because we have playoffs and stuff like that too. So 3 of us here live every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern on the 4for4 Bets YouTube channel. Should be able to find the podcast in your feed on Wednesday evening. Subscribe to both so you don't miss a show. This is free content. Subscribing, likes, thumbs up, all those things in comments in the video, they go a long way in helping us, allowing us to bring you some of the best tools and content in the industry here at 4for4. Take a second, click a button. We appreciate it. Don't forget, there is also a second show every week on Fridays. Connor and myself, John Hyslop from Odds Jam. That is Move the Line Prop Drop Show. Again, 3 p.m. Eastern on Fridays if you want to get into the player prop streets with us. We talk all the time here, and this is my job to essentially somewhat sell you on the fact that, hey, you should probably spend some money with us, right? This is free content, but we do have a subscription at 4for4 that allows you to get access to all the actual picks that we make, along with everything else that we do, including betting on the NBA. But if you're playing DFS, you're still grinding your season-long league on the football side, like all that we do at 4for4 is encapsulated with the betting subscription. We've already discounted it because we're in week 10. It's already 50% off. We now have a promo code, BETS50, BETS50, gets you an additional 50% off over an already 50% off sub. It's $62 right now to get a betting subscription at 4for4 through the end of the football season. It actually takes you through the end of February. So it gets you, basically through the All-Star break and the NBA. Wish we could do it differently. It's just kind of how our system works. But you can, we'll have advantages, deals for you to take advantage to get early for next year. But again, $62 to basically bet with us for the next 4 months. And you get lots of other stuff too. Check it out, 4for4.com/plans, bets 50 for a $62 sub. Again, it's $250 for the year. And we're down to $62 again. We are, it's a truncated season, but again, still a lot of time, almost 4 months for that subscription to really have value for you. Check it out, 4for4.com/plans. All right. We don't have kind of like the 4 ultra games that we had last week, but I think we have a good mix of games and impactful games here. It's, as we get to this point where now we have to start talking about like playoff implications, divisions, futures, some of that stuff. Is there anything on the board, Connor, for you right now that you're looking at? I know you played an in-season future, not like to make the playoffs, but fading a team. I really liked your edge there. If you want to share that with folks, I don't know if it's still bettable, but what's your process looking like in terms of like looking at futures as we get into this part of the season?
Yeah, I'm always open to looking at other futures markets, but I have to feel, I think, extra good about it because I think we're in the in-season grind. Like, I don't know, I feel like the churn of money, I think, can just be made easier if I'm making more in-season plays than a future. But that being said, if I think that there's like extra expected value on something, I'm more than open to playing it. So I played the New York Giants, have the worst record. This is plus 320 at FanDuel. I think it was still plus 280 as of this morning. I'd probably play this on like plus 275, maybe even lower, because we're looking at them and being in contention right now with Arizona, Carolina, Chicago, and New England. And we have the Giants now officially starting Tommy DeVito, who's, I think, the worst quarterback in the league, by a pretty wide margin at this point. The Cardinals getting back Kyler Murray. He's going to start this week. The Bears probably not going to just Fields back this week, but the week after. And then Carolina has a couple winnable, quote, winnable games. Like there are games where they'll be close underdogs, And so I think that's pretty important there. And this Giants team, Darren Waller on IR, offensive line, Evan Neal injured again. Tommy DeVito, we already talked about it. 16-point underdogs in Dallas this week. So I don't know. I thought that they should be like basically favorites or tied for favorites here because this, in my mind, is a pretty close race, especially with the Giants here. Even though Brian Dable was great last year, I think it's time to be fully out. And I know Clark has been big on fading the Giants, or at least was in the futures market before the season.
Yeah. Clark's got I think you got an alt under win total or something there. It's probably sitting nice. How about you, Clark, in terms of looking at futures or, anything else that's caught your eye or anything that maybe you're looking at to see in terms of how this week shakes out?
Yeah, I've been looking at futures markets, just kind of, scanning them. I think, I spend so much of my time on the weekly NFL spreads and totals bets, but that's such a difficult market. Whereas, in-season futures are lower limits and they're more varied prices from book to book, which is just a softer market to play. So when I see, my numbers, I look at my numbers week to week and I look at how I'm projecting this week's matchups and next week's matchups. And if I see a team that has potential material, change in expectations upcoming based on how I project they'll play, then sometimes I can find value in that in the futures market. Last week, I posted on Twitter about the Saints division was plus 145, which I thought was mispriced, and now everything went my way last week, and now I think it's minus 200 on Circa. So that was a pretty good week. This week I like the Browns to miss the playoffs. You can get it at plus 150 at Caesars, plus 140 like Circa, and FanDuel I think has plus 140 as well. The AFC playoff race is going to be real tight. There's a chance that one of the top 6 teams kind of fails, like whether it's injury or just underperforming. But I think Miami and Buffalo, Cincinnati and Baltimore, and then the winner, the Chiefs and the Jags, winner of those divisions. I think all 6 of those teams are fairly likely to make it. I'm probably higher on the Bills than I think most people are, but that 7th spot's going to be a dogfight. And the Browns have a relatively easier schedule than some of the teams in their division, but I think that's overplaying how bad this team can be. Like Deshaun Watson, I've been anti Deshaun Watson for on this show throughout the offseason. And I finally think the price is there to kind of fade him because people think that, okay, he's healthy, they can be better now. But Deshaun Watson is not a good quarterback. They've lost 2 offensive linemen. Their defense has been keeping them afloat against bad defenses. We're going to get into this when we talk about the Ravens-Browns matchup, but this is a very susceptible team to a big drop-off if they suffer a couple of injuries on defense. And I'm not sure that their offense is good enough to win some of these games. They're going to be, priced close to pick them down the stretch. So this is a team that I think should be a lot closer to plus 100 to plus 150. So I think there's some value on Browns to miss the playoffs.
Good transition. We'll jump in. That's our first game here this week, and I think impactful one in terms of how the AFC North shakes out a little bit. Cleveland is in Baltimore. This was Baltimore minus 4.5 briefly on Sunday night. Got bet out quickly to 5.5, and then out to 6 on Monday morning and has held there. Totals dropped a little bit too. From 40, we get down to 37.5. It jumps back up here in the last little bit. There are some 38s on the board, 38.5 on FanDuel here. Second meeting of the season. First one, I don't think we really should even talk about. It was the Dorian Thompson-Robinson starts. Ravens picked him off 3 times, sacked him 4 times. I think just really impossible to draw anything in terms of what happened there. You know, obviously the short fields given to the Ravens offense impact the Browns there. So it wasn't even like, oh, hey, they hung 28 on the Browns defense. It's like, that's not really how that actually happened if you were to watch that game. So Baltimore 7-2, winners of 4 straight, sitting atop this division where, as of now, everyone in the division would make the playoffs, which is absolutely wild. And I don't think any of us really think that. I mean, Clark obviously just bet against the Browns. I don't think he's on the Steelers either. We're not going to talk about them today, but I mean, 2 dominant performances. Detroit and Seattle are good football teams, and the Ravens absolutely boat raced both of those squads on the season. Through 9 games, they've allowed 9 touchdowns. It's fantastic. I mean, I pointed out, I still think it's subpar talent defensively. It's kind of wild. I mean, look, Kyle Van Noy was like doing spots on the Pat McAfee show, like in like week 3. And the dude is like impactful in terms of what they're doing from an edge rush standpoint. Jadeveon Clowney is getting it done. It's Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith and just a bunch of guys, especially in the edges, like, or the, outside in cornerbacks and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's incredible. Marlon Humphreys has been in and out of the lineup. They've had a ton of injuries. It's been awesome. Clark, I'll let you keep rolling with this one here. Baltimore -6.
Yeah, so the Browns and Ravens defenses have both been obviously top of the league. Their statistical metrics are fantastic. But I think the Ravens defense is better than the Browns defense. And I think that's based on recent play and who they've played, who they've done it against. If you look at the Browns in the last 5 weeks, they absolutely smothered the Cardinals with Clayton Tune at quarterback. Fair enough. But when they played Seattle, they weren't that great on defense. Seattle led the game-winning drive, for a touchdown to win. Put up, I think, 24 points. When they played the Colts, their defense wasn't great against, Gardner Minshew, who has been kind of up and down, during this year outside of that game. San Francisco, they played well, but, they suffered so many in-game injuries, the Niners did. And then there was bad weather. There was a lot of penalties that led to a lot of, 1st and 20s and stuff that kind of impacted them. And then Baltimore, they didn't really play that well on defense against Baltimore. Granted, the game was one way, but, Lamar Jackson did what he needed to do, led a couple long touchdown drives in the first half, and the game was over. Whereas the Ravens, their defensive performances have come against the Lions and the Seahawks in 2 of the past 3 weeks, and they've absolutely smothered both of those teams. Those are very good offenses. So when I'm comparing these 2 defenses in the way they've been playing recently, I think the Ravens are actually better. And what I love about their pass rush is they don't have, one stud player that is just like, every 10 plays making such an incredible move that the quarterback has no chance to get away. It's a group of guys meeting at the quarterback consistently. And when you have that group pressure, it's really, really tough for the offense to do anything about it. So I think here, Deshaun Watson, who I'm very low on, and I don't think is a very good quarterback, hasn't shown anything in his entire time in Cleveland. He is slow to process. The offensive line is beat up on both sides. I think this is a spot where the Ravens defense will just smother the Browns offense. They don't have a run game to offset it. And I think that's going to give the Ravens a lot of offensive possessions. This is one of my favorite ways to play a game, is when I project, a complete domination on defense on one side and then a good matchup on the other side. Is the Browns defense will win some matchups, the Ravens offense will win some matchups, but because of the number of possessions they'll get based on how many times they stop the Browns offense, I expect the Ravens to eventually score enough points to cover even a big spread like 6. So I like the Ravens here at home. I think they're in a different class than the Browns, and I think this is where they show it.
Yeah, the interesting thing too, because you look at all the metrics, all the key metrics you touched on. I mean, basically, these 2 are top 2 in the league in everything. The one edge is Baltimore's red zone defense. It's been significantly better than Cleveland's. Ravens, best in the league. Just 7 of their 21 red zone trips against them have resulted in a touchdown. Now, Cleveland's only allowed 18 trips to the red zone against them, but like converting at a pretty high rate. They're 29th in red zone defense. Now, again, smaller sample, only 18 red zone appearances, like I said, but that's, I think, a difference maker. We could talk about if that's a sticky stat or if that's something, you could take into consideration who those offenses are. But to your point, like the Browns haven't really done it against the elite teams that we think in comparison to what the Ravens have done. So, Connor, floor is yours. Clark was right. Like you and I kind of like we struggled in the offseason doing our AFC North pod. We were like, Clark is just kind of dumping on Deshaun Watson, having never been a good quarterback. We push back on that. I still would say that I don't think is necessarily true. It's hard to argue right now, right? Like, and I think Clark made a good point earlier of the perception of the Browns now that we're out of kind of the backup era. Hey, they're getting healthy, they're getting right, but all of a sudden, like they lose Jedrick Wills. Like this is an interesting game, and I think the Ravens are kind of the right side. I get why the Lions move where it's gone.
Yeah, he's played one good game this season against the Titans, but I think everyone's played a good game against the Titans, and a lot, except for basically Joe Burrow in that fluke game, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't really have much disagreement here. I think my angle would be a little bit different. I think that I would like the under on the game. I think that everything basically you said applies. I guess my only lean would be more towards the under instead of taking the side here, just because, Lamar averaged close to 10 yards per attempt, but I think Noonan, you brought up a good point. Like, DTR had 3 interceptions. Like a lot of the scoring, the final score was, I think, turnover fueled. So I think if you go into this game here specifically, like we're probably not going to get that, I would assume, because even though Deshaun's, not very good, he's at least throwing the ball into the dirt or way over the receivers and not in the other team's hands. So it's like, I think it's a little bit different here. So yeah, I'd probably just lean towards the under. I don't have much more to add beyond that because you guys did a great job of fleshing out both sides. I don't think there's many schematic advantages that either offense has either, to be honest, that they're really worth digging into.
Yeah, that's fair here. What's the Browns? Yeah. Well, team total, you can find 16 and a halves out there. Again, doesn't really matter. 14 and a half, 15 and a half at that point when you're on that side of 17, it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, that's game under I can get behind too. But yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good look. I wish I would have got the 4.5s. I would have jumped on the 4.5. That came out pretty quickly and was gone within an hour or two there on Sunday night. All right, next, San Francisco on the road in Jacksonville. This open San Fran 2.5 got out to San Fran -3. Some buyback on the Jag side, back down to 2.5, and then we've seen now more money stabilize the Niners here at 3 -110 pretty much across the board. Totals are out there in a number of different totals, basically 45.5 up to 46.5, all readily available in domestic. So shop around if you have a specific lean there. Both clubs coming off of week 9 bye. Niners certainly limped into theirs. It looked like world beaters after just absolutely curb stomping the Cowboys there on Sunday night back in week 5. And when you do that against a national team on a Sunday night game, like we had Brock Purdy, the favorite basically for MVP all of a sudden. Since then, losers of 3 straight. Started basically when they lost both Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams. That's going to happen. Those are pretty impactful players in that matchup that kind of went wonky with the Browns. And, a couple, again, I think poorly timed turnovers for Brock Purdy. I don't think it's anything, to me at least, that's really problematic, Connor. Both players, though, trending pretty well coming out of the bye. We should have them both here. What's your thoughts here on Niners Jags?
Yeah, there's been some interesting line movement in the last 30 minutes. This total has gone from 46.5 to now an even 45. And for me, I like the over at that point at 45. And I was already leaning there at 46.5 because 2 reasons here specifically. So we have this Niners defense, last 2 games, 8.4 yards per attempt. Kirk Cousins, 378 yards. And then Joe Burrow, 283 yards and 3 touchdowns on 8.84 yards per attempt. San Francisco only pressured those 2 quarterbacks in 36% of the dropbacks, which was middle of the road. After all season, 41% pressure rate. They added Chase Young. Obviously, that's going to make an impact. But Trevor Lawrence so far only been pressured on 29% of his dropbacks, 4th lowest rate in the league. And when he has been pressured, he hasn't been very good. But when he is not under pressure, completing 74% of his passes, 101 passer rating. So I think that on the Jaguar side is encouraging because that was my biggest question before digging into it. It was like, can the Jags line hold up? Can Trevor Lawrence have enough time to really exploit, the Niners secondary that, hasn't really played all that well lately. But then we have on the other side too here, you made a great point. It's like Trent Williams coming back, Deebo Samuel coming back. Like everyone seems to be at least fully healthy. Now at this point here, Brock Purdy splits under pressure are pretty significant here because this Jags defense, 25th in pressure rate. Purdy is connected on 30 of 39 passes, even the last 2 games when he hasn't been playing well, for 11 yards per attempt. And then on the season, 78% completion rate, 10.4 yards per attempt when not under pressure. So, I mean, again, if they're able to keep him clean, and I think they're going to go pass heavy here because this is a little bit of a spot where the Jags like to load the box. And I don't think that they're going to blindly run into those. Like, I think that they're going to see probably some heavier sets and then use that to their advantage with play action and get the tight ends involved and play action Ayuk and stuff there. So I like the over. Now that being said, it becomes a little bit fragile if they decide, oh, we're going to go run heavy right into Jacksonville's loaded box, or if Jacksonville can't keep San Francisco out of their backfield. Like, that's could obviously massively deter the total here, but I'm confident enough that both teams are able to score to get over this total of 45.
Yeah, good thoughts there. Clark, where are you at in this one?
Yeah, I see that. My metrics have been pretty low on the 49ers defense compared to what I expected coming into the season. They've just not been performing at the level that you would expect. I mean, they have the talent, they have the players, like these guys are studs up and down this defense, but it's not been happening on the field. And so my numbers, I always anticipate who I'm going to like in a game based on, I'll publish my power ratings on Twitter, and then I'll get a bunch of pushback. And wherever that pushback is typically like, oh, that's probably a team I want to bet on. I got a lot of pushback for ranking the Niners number 1 in my rankings last week. Like, how can you rank a team number 1 after losing 3 games? But my numbers actually make this under 3 for the Niners on the road against Jacksonville. So, like, the team that I perceived that I would be on, I'm not actually on. And I think that's a big reason why. The problem, though, is they really could step up on defense. Like, it's one of those things where the numbers say one thing, but like, I know I've seen it. We saw it last year. We saw it all last year. We know who the players are. We know they have the talent. They added Chase Young, and the coaching maybe was a downgrade from what they had last year with D'Amico Ryans, but they also just had a bye week to figure some stuff out. Like, there's a chance that this Niners team kind of hits its stride coming out of the bye week, and that's not something I want to run into with the Jags this week. Because if that defense returns to form, they're going to be materially better, and they will be the best team in the NFL. It's also not a game that I want to tease the Jags. I mean, I know we're kind of out of the 2.5 now, we're under the 3, so it's probably not a great teaser candidate anyway, but this is the kind of game that could get out of hand if that 49ers defense shows up the way that it can out of the bye. I do like the Jags, and I do like Trevor Lawrence, but this is a really, really tough matchup. And like you said, schematically, if the Niners, use the Jaguars' aggressiveness against the run against them and really get that to create space on the outside the way Shanahan can and does frequently, then this could be a easy game where the Niners just march up and down the field. Might take a while. So the over is, maybe a little bit dicey for me, but I do expect the Niners to move the ball well and successfully throughout the game.
Yeah, I don't have a good feel for this one. I mean, I feel like both teams, like, I feel like every week, like Jacksonville, first of all, they're 6-2. They won 5 in a row. Yeah. But like, we're not talking about them as like a team that's like, we think is like real contenders in this conference. I just feel like there's a lot of meat left on the bone every week in terms of, like, they went out and they, beat Pittsburgh 20-10. It was sloppy, bad turnovers. Like, it should be like kind of really pulling away from that team, especially with, the way the Steelers just kind of muck up things. And, but yeah, I mean, I feel like the Jags are good. They belong in that discussion. They should be the playoff team. They should be the team that we kind of thought coming in was the clear favorite in that division. But I don't think of them as like a 6-2 AFC powerhouse that's going to actually really get in the way of some of these other teams here in the conference. So I think they can be better. I haven't seen it yet. Need to see some more consistency from Trevor Lawrence. The run game, the offensive line hasn't been great. So, and I want to see, like you mentioned, like Fred Warner. We talk about like all world linebacker. He's like a 17% missed tackle rate this year. That is not what we've seen from Fred Warner at all in his career. Dre Greenlaw in and out of the lineup all the time. The secondary you could pick on if you can't get to the quarterback. So it's why I think they felt like, hey, we need to make a move here. And I think the Chase Young is a splashy move. Let's see what kind of comes out of that in the bye and moving forward. So for me, it's going to be a watch and see. I'm with you. I don't think there's teaser legs because I think there's a pretty wide range of outcomes if the Niners get rolling here. I don't want Jags plus money because I think the Niners can steamroll them here a little bit too. So going to be a good one to watch. I want to wait and see. Yeah. Next, Detroit is on the road. They're in LA. This opened Detroit -1.5, moved to 2.5 on Monday. That's a movement earlier today on this one as well. We are now out to Detroit -3 across the board here against the Chargers. Totals hold strong, 48.5. It's a tough schedule spot for the Chargers. Lions coming off of a bye. Chargers having to go east back to west. They were in New York, obviously, on Monday night, back home. Again, Chargers home games, never a home field advantage here too. Lions fans, obviously, they're dying to restore the roar here, really. So they're like traveling well and stuff. All of a sudden, probably a de facto home game for Detroit here. So, and Detroit too is like a weird team. Like I almost buy into like some narratives in coach speak with the team like Detroit more than I would for any other team because of like this coaching staff, former players, Dan Campbell, like they got their teeth kicked in by Baltimore before the bye. That probably didn't sit well and has been kind of stewing a little bit. And now they get to come out against the Chargers team who just, I don't know, there's just not a lot of juice here, Connor. What are your thoughts on Detroit and the Chargers?
Yeah, I know we're going back to back here, but I also like the over in this game because I think that with both of these defenses here, when I was digging into their splits against like good teams, it's wild. So we look at this Chargers defense here. They played against like 3 good quarterbacks, 466 yards and 3 touchdowns to Tua, 367 yards and 3 touchdowns to Kirk Cousins, 424 yards and 4 touchdowns to Patrick Mahomes. Like that is any reasonable offense they played against. That's been what they've allowed. And then the Lions defense, kind of the same thing here against Lamar Jackson, Geno, and Matt Mahomes, where Mahomes frankly played terrible. The Chiefs offense played terrible. Still including that because again, I'm not going to disclude it just because he had a bad game. 300 passing yards per game, allowing 8.5 yards per attempt, 13% explosive pass rate, 7 touchdowns, 1 pick. So I know that it's not all in those splits, but I mean, I think that contextualizing it and looking at who they're playing this week is important. Now, I think there could be some questions about how much juice the Chargers offense has in totality, but I kind of think the last week is a little bit of an outlier with, how poorly their offense have played because the Jets defense is, as we talked on the show, awesome. Like they're a great defense. And the Chargers didn't have Josh Palmer in a matchup where they literally could not throw outside the numbers because of Sauce and DJ Reed. So I don't know. I kind of think they get the totals 48.5. So it seems a little bit high, but I think we could have some success here from both sides offensively.
I mean, they won by 20-some points. So it's like a weird situation where you come out of it feeling like, they had
like a kick return or whatever, right? It was like a punt return maybe. So
yeah. And that's part of it too, right?
Still 20 points.
Clark, where are you at in this one?
Yeah, the Lions defense has had some coverage lapses. Like their numbers are really good and the production's been really good, but there's been a lot of throws where it's like, I mean, we saw it on Monday night in full display against the Raiders, where if the quarterback just throws the ball accurately, like those numbers don't look good. Devontae Adams catches 2 long bombs if Garoppolo can hit him. That's been the case throughout the year, and the bad quarterbacks the Lions have faced haven't been able to capitalize. Baker Mayfield was the same way, missed a lot of throws that could have been successful in that game. Whereas, Lamar Jackson just absolutely dominated them. So if Justin Herbert can capitalize against those lapses in coverage against the Lions, then I do think that the Chargers can have some success here. Since the bye, they've struggled on offense without Mike Williams and Corey Linsley, but they've gone against the Jets, who are an elite defense. They've gone against the Chiefs and the Cowboys, who are also very good on defense. And then finally the Bears, who are playing better on defense, and the Chargers played well on offense in that game anyway. So this does project to be a game where I think the Chargers offense gets back on track. The travel concerns are there, the bye week, extra week to prepare for the Lions. Ben Johnson's probably scheming up some stuff to capitalize against this Chargers defense is not a great proposition. It feels like the kind of game where if the Chargers, get a 3-and-out on their first possession, it's going to be 14-0 Lions. And then it's like, why did I bet on the Chargers? So I'm still processing that. My numbers would prefer, when it was at 2.5, my numbers prefer the teaser leg. You can still tease from 3 to 9, but you don't get as much value there. So I'm hands off on this game for now. But this is a game that I think means a lot more to the Chargers than it does the Lions. Whether or not that impacts the actual final score, I don't know. But it's not a spot that I'm looking to get involved with the home favorite against a team that is in desperation mode, trying to save its season and probably should have a good game here.
Yeah, it's the Mike Williams injury, and we've seen it because this happens annually. We have a Mike Williams injury that has massive ramifications to the offensive upside of the Chargers. And look, Quentin Williams, they want him to maybe be the dude. He's out there a ton on Monday night and absolutely nothing. Bottom of the league in yards per route run, I think really close to bottom of the league in terms of where he's at. Just not getting it done. It's just, again, it has to be a lot of Austin Eckler, has to be a lot of Keenan Allen to stretch the field. The Lions are getting healthy. They get David Montgomery back here, and I don't think they're going to need Jared Goff to cook. But I think Jared Goff is uber efficient and picks apart this Chargers defense, kind of like what Connor outlined. When they've played really good quarterbacks and quarterbacks that can get it done, protected, kept clean. I like I said, 2.5 would be more interesting. I didn't get in on 2.5, so 3 is way less enticing to me. But I would definitely be Lions or nothing to me. I'm not really interested in the Chargers in this situation, in this spot. I could be sold on the over. I think that's probably a good lean there too. But yeah, I think even Lions team total, I think the Lions have no problem putting up points and moving the ball here on the Chargers. All right, next we have Houston on the road in Cincinnati. It's opened Cincy -8, down to 6.5 in most spots. There are some juice 7s out there as well. Total has been bet out from 45.5 to 48 in most spots. This is obviously driven off of the news to monitor here around Jamar Chase in his back. He landed awkwardly on the lower back there in a deep attempt early in the matchup against the Bills. Sure enough, he's feeling it. Didn't practice here on Wednesday. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. I don't know that I expect it to be like a long-term issue. Maybe it's an impactful issue for this week. Kind of strange quotes in terms of like, I just got to support my teammates. I got to get healthy. Like, didn't sound super encouraging. But on the other side, the CJ Stroud stuff, guys, is like, this is awesome. Again, like, sorry, Clark, is a bad way to lose a bet. Gaudy stat line. He threw like 325 yards in the second half alone. The last second comeback was awesome. Some of the stuff, though, and Solak did a great job on his piece on the Ringer this week. Every quarterback with at least 200 pass attempts has thrown at least 3 picks. Stroud has 1. That's impressive in and of itself. There are paths for that to happen, though, right? It makes sense. Like, if you think about how you can maybe get there in terms of like just protecting the football. Extremely impressive, though, with a rookie quarterback and a rookie play caller and Bobby Slowick. But like, you could just play really cautious. You can just check down. You can throw it away all the time. We've seen that, like Aaron Rodgers had a handful of years there where he just like refused to throw an interception. He like tripled everyone in like, throwaway rate. Like, he just, take a ton of sacks to get the ball out quick in extremely high quick game screen passes. No, that is not what's happening. Stroud is dropping back behind what's been mostly a decimated offensive line. He's turned Nico Collins and Tank Dell into like household names. They've been like dudes this year. They've been getting it done. He's 5th in average depth of target on the season. He's 2nd in average depth of target on play action looks. Like, this is next level stuff. So like, yeah, we had the moment where it was like a great comeback, but like all the stuff beyond it is really, really encouraging that he's like maybe actually a guy. Now they're getting healthy. Part of it's too, like, you lose Damian Pierce, you don't want to really run with Devin Singletary. So all of a sudden you're like, sometimes you accidentally unlock a next level for the quarterback here. And that's what's happening with Stroud here. I understand maybe kind of this pro Stroud movement here, along with the Jamar Chase news here. Clark has kind of moved this. What are your thoughts on this one? It's going to be a fun one to watch, I think.
Yeah, totally. Stroud is the man. I mean, his demeanor, everything about the way he plays the game is so exciting. He's super solid. I've been really enjoying watching the Texans, but surprisingly, I actually don't like them in this game. I think, obviously not at 6.5. It's more interesting at 7. I think that's kind of where we're headed. Mm-hmm. But even there, the Bengals are playing better on defense than they have earlier in the year. And I think this is an important point heading into this part of the season. Last year, part of their strength on defense was their safety tandem, and they got rid of both of them. And they've had 2 young guys, not rookies, but, basically rookies, step into the defense. And it's looked worse this year, especially early on. Those guys are getting better. They're figuring stuff out schematically. Lou Anarumo always does this. He figures stuff out by the end of the year. He knows what he's doing. He knows what his guys can do. And I think we're seeing this. My big takeaway from the Bills-Bengals game was that the Bengals defense actually stopped the Bills offense quite a lot. And this Bills offense has been playing very well this year. So that was very impressive to me. I think that is one thing to be watching for. And the other side, Joe Burrow is playing the best football of his career right now, in my opinion. His command of the offense, his anticipation, his timing, his accuracy, his poise, everything is very, very flat and very, very solid. And I think he understands when to take chances. He understands when to take what the defense gives. And he's playing at a level that I think is good enough to carry, the Bengals back to relevance after a really rough start. So this is a Bengals team that's hitting its stride and is playing at home against a Texans team that just came off a massive win that they feel really, really good about. And I think this is a spot where it's exciting to look at what the Texans can do, but I think this is going to be a Lou Anarumo versus CJ Stroud game. And I think Lou Anarumo wins that matchup. And Bobby Slowick, like you said. So this is a game that I'm not looking to get involved in with such a big spread, but not one that I'm looking to back the Texans, where I might have thought that I wanted to because I love the Texans offense, and getting 7 with a good offense is typically a good angle, but this isn't the spot for me.
Connor, I'm shook right now. This is pro Bengals talk coming from Clark here. I thought for sure he was in on some, maybe had some, pocket Texans, eights that he didn't tell us about here. Pro Lou Amarillo takes here. I'm next week we're gonna get pro Eagles thoughts from Clark, and like the whole world is gonna
let's
be.
not get carried away.
Whoa.
Fabian
We know the
says-
world's over if he says anything good about Deshaun Watson. We know that.
Then we're really
for Clark. We gotta go. Find.
Off
I mean,
rails.
obviously Jamar Chase matters, and Fabian said T Higgins is limited. I'm not too worried about that. It's Wednesday, whatever. Also, Jamar Chase is saying that stuff, but like, you remember when Tyreek Hill was like, you may see me in like a couple of months or whatever,
right.
like, and then he's out the next week. Like, we players, especially wide receivers, this is the wide receiver, like the enemy holds a knife or whatever. Like they say stuff that is just out there. So I'm not giving up on Chase yet. If he's ruled out, it obviously dampens some optimism. But if Chase plays, then teasing the Bengals down to 1 is auto bet for me.
Yeah. T Higgins could be interesting. Big T Higgins week for my boy Connor here. Made some money laddering T Higgins. This is T Higgins basically playing and highlighting himself for his future team next year. T Higgins in Texans Texans got a lot of money to spend. T Higgins not coming back to Cincinnati. That could be very interesting. But yeah, Connor, floor is yours. What are your thoughts here on Houston and Cincinnati?
I noticed what Clark did with the Cincinnati defense because there are total metrics here: 31st in explosive pass rate allowed, 28th in passing success rate, just like was not reflected in any way. What we saw last week. And so I have some concern about this Texans offense. Also, the fact is like they just can't run the ball like at all. Like I don't think opponent agnostic, like they literally cannot run the ball no matter who they play. And so even though the Bengals run defense at times has been leaky, like I just don't think that even matters in any facet here because they just haven't shown to be able to do it against literally anyone. And so that's kind of that could be an issue when they face a team that kind of figures that out a little bit. And I think Lou Anarumo could be a team or a coach that's able to do that. Also, where I think Cincinnati could have an edge is on play action. So out of the bye, we saw Joe Burrow use play action more. Since the bye, 31% play action rate. Texans against play action, 31st completion rate, 29th in yards per attempt, allowing 10 yards per attempt against play action. So I mean, it could be a great time. And that's why we've seen T Higgins get more involved, is because they're able to have like deeper routes where it's not just like, oh, you need to get open in like 2 seconds. Cause that's not really T Higgins game. That's more of a Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd game. And that's, reflected in his production. So obviously I would like T Higgins to be fully healthy in order to make a bet on the Bengals here. I would like Jamar Chase to be fully healthy. I think that one's a little bit more up in the air, but again, like Clark said, we'll see. I think if Chase misses and there's still a 7 around here, I would lean towards Houston at 7. If we can get a 6.5 and we have Chase and Higgins in, I would be fine with that too. So I think that they honestly, both of those guys matter a lot in this matchup.
Yeah, you guys touched on it. Basically, we had Seattle scored 13, San Francisco scored 17, and Baltimore scored 18. Those are the last 3 games. Really strong offenses, and that's just Cincinnati is taking it to a different level. And as Clark said, maybe just a little bit more continuity in terms of what's going on in the back half. It's just been significantly better. We've had some really good games from Trey Hendricks and Sam Hubbard up front. The interior with Hill and Reeder are excellent. Like it's just a really nice unit that seems to be gelling. So a lot of things kind of working there on the on the Bengals side. And look, we're coming off of 2 weeks ago, like this Texans team lost to the Panthers and like kind of handily in a way. Like the score didn't show it that way, but like they really couldn't get anything going. So yeah, part of it is like I think they kind of accidentally backed into having to go more pass heavy, and that just allowed them to kind of maximize their best talent. Like sometimes you got to do that, like get off the run. Yeah,
they capitalized against some secondary injuries against the Bucs. I think Jamal Dean was out in that second half when he did all that.
Almost the whole game. Yeah,
almost the whole game. And Baker Mayfield, let's not forget, Baker Mayfield absolutely torched this Texans defense on the other side. Like we'd be talking about Baker Mayfield if C.J. Stroud didn't, miracle comeback that game. So this is not a defense that I'm particularly afraid of, even without Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow has done it, but without Chase in the past, I projected a big drop off for him last year in those 4 games where he missed Chase, and he made me look silly for that projection. So I think the Bengals can figure it out.
Yeah, it's Bengals or nothing for me. I'm not super interested in the Texans, even though I pumped Stroud's tires there to start. I think just excited to have a nice young quarterback in the league that's going to be, I think, around and a guy for a couple of years. And even though they It's kind of interesting to see what they did in the draft. I think they hit home runs at least with both picks. Like Will Anderson Jr. has been outstanding. And obviously Stroud is the guy too. So yeah, they kind of sold out this year, but at least they went 2 for 2 with those top 3 picks.
What about those Joe Burrow MVP tickets? Those are looking nice.
ELV looking nice right now.
But okay, I will say though, Josh Allen 20-1 now is probably a pretty good buyback, I think.
So the Josh Allen stuff makes a ton of sense because think about how they have to get there based off of what we know of how the Bills are right now. It's going to be Josh Allen Superman performances because the defense.
Can Joe Burrow win MVP if the Ravens win the AFC North?
Probably not. That's the issue. That's the biggest issue. I mean, at the top here we have Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, Tua, and Lamar. I think Mahomes and Tua are both very flimsy. I think Jalen Hurts is very thin. Lamar is the only one because they might just win a shitload of games.
Yeah. If the Ravens go 13-4, I think Lamar gets it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's pivot real quick while we're here. Connor, do you have Defensive Player of the Year stuff open?
Yeah, I got my phone next to me here. Let me Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. You said?
Yeah.
Who are you looking for?
Well, so it was basically Myles Garrett and TJ Watt there for a little bit, or clearly the guys. And I don't know what the historical stuff is on Defensive Player of the Year if your team's not making the playoffs. To Clark's point, Clark's taking plus money on the Browns to not make the playoffs. Look, Steelers are 5-3. They're in playoff position right now. I don't think that's a playoff team. And what happens if all of a sudden this second half of the season, we start to see the sack performance that we would expect from Micah Parsons on a team that we definitely think is making the playoffs? If he's third in that market, I don't know what the market is currently.
I'm seeing plus 180. Unfortunately, he's the favorite. He's plus 180. Garrett plus 190. TJ Watt 2-1. So that's and then everyone else is 20-1. So it's a 3-man race right now.
There's probably been some money on them. Looking at the next 4 games for the Cowboys, I think it's going to be Micah Parsons' DPOY audition season.
I mean, he's going to get. No one's hanging multiple sack lines out there for us, but I mean, gosh, against this Giants offensive line with Danny DeVito at quarterback, that is not going to go very well.
It'll be whenever he wants a sack, you know what I mean? It's not even going to be how many. Yeah. Whenever he wants one, he can just get one.
Yeah,
if you got Giants and then Panthers and then Commanders coming.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, Bryce is taking sacks a lot too right now. Bryce is eating sacks. So I don't know. I think that's not where I was. I think that's makes some sense, but I still think that's probably the right side. Now again, Max Crosby is the same argument. I can't talk about Max Crosby and make the same argument about not making the playoffs. He shouldn't be 25 or 30. They're dead last in pressure rate, and he's going as a team, and he's absolutely dominating and has been an absolute stud. He shouldn't be as far out as he is, but again, that's kind of my point is, the Raiders are, 6-11. He doesn't really matter how good Max Crosby is, so hard to stand on that. But I don't know. Micah Parsons, I think it was probably close to 2-1, still probably a pretty good bet live. So
plus 190 FanDuel. I just checked there.
Not bad. Yeah. I mean, at this point I have 700 and 650 from the preseason. So I don't need any more, but I feel good about it where it's at.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Next, last one, Arizona, hosting the Falcons here. This opened Cardinals as a 1.5 point favorite on Sunday night, quickly went the other way. We had the Falcons 1.5 point favorites on Monday. Then we got Kyler Murray news. We expected it, but again, when it goes official, you just see some reaction in the market. It's kind of how these things work. It was enough to move the line back in the Cardinals' favor. The Arizona 1.5 point favorites on Monday night. That's when Clark and I kind of started discussing this matchup a little bit in our Discord, just how it made its way here onto the show this week. I was pushing back at the time on what looked to be a pretty strong pro Cardinals market sentiment. My point was I'm not even strong on the Falcons. I just thought if this was going to move to 2.5 or 3 on the Cardinals side, I thought that would make, an elite leg for the Falcons in a teaser, and just had some interest maybe on the Falcons as a money line team. But again, I don't know. I wasn't alone. This yo-yoed back once again. It's now Atlanta minus 1.5 in most spots. Definitely shop this line. There's some 2s. There's some juice 1.5. So take a look here. Totals pushed up from 41.5 to 43 here. Clark, I'm just not sold on Kyler. I'm not sold on the Kyler bump. Again, it can't be worse. probably it's not gonna be worse than Clayton Tune for sure. Yeah, so that's, I'm not as interested. We're talking about maybe making a hat bet, but I thought that was going to be like a Arizona -3. I'd have been very much interested here. But what are your thoughts here on Arizona with Kyler in this matchup?
This is going to be two firsts for me on this show. First, I'm pro Bengals. Now I'm going to be pro Kyler Murray. I've been one of the biggest Kyler Murray haters for years. But I think this spot actually sets up well for him for a couple reasons. One, I don't like backing quarterbacks in their first game back. Like, this is a pretty well-known angle where, starting quarterbacks tend to look a little shaky. But I think the way that this has been handled makes me less eager to lean into that line. The first is because he's been practicing for weeks. Like, he's been healthy. And this has been kind of a slow process where they wanted to wait until the right moment to bring him out. And he's been practicing. He'll practice with the first team this week and get those reps. So I think his health is not really a concern. The second is, if you look at what Josh Dobbs did well, both in Arizona and in Minnesota last week, it's that off script plays. And that's what Kyler Murray does well as well. They have talent on this Arizona offense, especially if James Conner plays. We'll see if that happens, but they've got some speed outside. And if Kyler Murray can just create and get outside the pocket and get running the way Dobbs did against the same Falcons defense without Grady Jarrett, then I think this Cardinals offense is live to score some points the same way it did in the best games with Dobbs. Like, I'm basically projecting the Cardinals offense to be who they were with Josh Dobbs. And I think that's a pretty low bar for Kyler Murray, who is, one of the better quarterbacks when healthy in the league to clear. So that's kind of my side on the Cardinals offense. As for the Falcons offense, I wasn't that impressed with Taylor Heineke last week. I think the problem is Arthur Smith. It wasn't Desmond Ridder, and it's not Taylor Heineke. It's Arthur Smith. And Heineke, was inconsistent, just like we expected him to be. He's missing throws. And so, when the Falcons, when it came down to it, and the Falcons had to, deliver a game-winning drive or potential game-winning drive, it was run. And I think that's just not really a formula for success, especially against an underrated Cardinals defense that really played well against both the Ravens and the Browns in back-to-back weeks. That's getting a little bit overlooked because the final scores were so lopsided, but the defense is actually playing pretty well. And this is not a team that is tanking. This is a perception that the Cardinals are tanking. That's just not true. And Cleve TA on Twitter, like he absolutely is adamant that they are not tanking. They want to win. And he knows Jonathan Gannon. So this is a situation where I think the Cardinals, if they're going to win another game, like, this is a good spot for it against a pretty overrated Falcons team that, has to go on the road and beat an excited Cardinals team getting their quarterback back. So I do lean Cardinals, although I don't want to over leverage into an uncertain spot. We talked about this in the past, so it would be a small bet for me, but I do lean the Cardinals at plus money on the money line.
Yeah. Is it do we agree? Well, I don't know if it even matters. Do we agree that it's a good organizational decision that they shouldn't be tanking?
Yes, I do.
I don't know.
I think, look at the Lions, right? Like,
I'm pro tanking anytime you're near the bottom.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they should win their way out of the bottom, but I'm saying, 3 wins, you can still probably get the 1 or 2 pick. I don't think, if it's week 18 and you're the last year and you're the Texans and you score a touchdown to beat the Colts, that's stupid. Like, there's categorically stupid, bad decision. But week 10, with a team that you're trying to build around, like, you got to remember that these guys are going to be on the team next year. And if you just get used to this kind of mindset of losing, like, that really can impact the culture. So I think it's the right move to try to win. I just think they want to make sure they don't go overboard and win 6 games.
Yeah. I think it was smart to do what they did last week, right? It's like, hey, we're probably not winning this with Kyler. Let's not throw Kyler there in his first game. Let's, throw poor Clayton Tune out there as a sacrificial lamb and let him just take a beating. And that was smart. I just think you make such a great offseason decision on draft day, especially, to really just kind of leverage the Texans. And we remember betting the draft, like, it felt like a panic reaction. We didn't know there was a split decision in the Texans front office. There was some Will Anderson love. There was CJ Stroud. And they're like, hey, why not both? Like, all right, well, let's get on the call with Arizona. And it's like, you've done such a good job at setting yourself up. And we know what the skeleton key is to winning in the NFL these days is to have a top performing quarterback on a rookie deal. And that you put yourself in a massive, massive spot with all that draft capital, all of that financial freedom that comes with Kyler Murray being gone, and you get a rookie contract. I mean, it just, man, that you can fast track your way there, especially if you hit on the quarterback. So, and again, like these players are all, whether it's to your point, like, yeah, they want to build a culture of winning. Players don't tank. They want to put good tape out there. They're not going to be in Arizona. They want to be somewhere else. Like these players are not going out and trying to lose football games. It's ridiculous. Not what I'm implying, insinuating at all. I understand why a coach would say, we're out here trying to win football games. He has a real long leash. He came with a front office. So anytime you get like that front office change with the coaching staff, and I feel like the leash is real long. Like, let's just build this the right way. So I don't know. That's more like team building than this matchup specifically. But like Kyler wasn't good last year at all, any way, shape, or form. And he also, to me, like, again, this is like, again, narrative driven. He's kind of a front runner. Like there's a really bad body language when they're not winning and going well. And he's got like worse talent than he had last year. Like he had Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins and was like one of the worst passers in the league, basically in any metric. With some good stuff from Rich Rebar over at Sharp Football. There were 33 qualified passers in league passer rating. Murray 17th in EPA dropback, 23rd success rate, career lows in yards per attempt, yards per completion, touchdown rates. He was really bad anytime he pushed the ball down the field. And we know we had like, just all the stuff with Kingsbury was just all quick outs to the sidelines. There was nothing down the field, partially because Murray was bad. 42.1% of his completion percentage on passes 10 yards down the field. His success rate was only ahead of Carson Wentz, Kenny Pickett, and Zach Wilson. That is not good. And the talent's worse. So I'm also just worried about like first time back. Is that a spot where I expect him to come in and be somewhat closer to the guy that he's been? Do I really think he's going to be the guy that he was in 2021 in his first time back after 9 months removed from a knee injury? I don't. And the market seems to agree at least a little bit compared to how we kind of look like we were trending on Monday. Connor, floor is yours for this matchup.
Yeah, I will say though, this is a new system with Drew Petzing and not
Sure.
the system with Cliff Kingsbury, which I think proved to not work at all. And so I think that maybe that helps. I mean, Josh Dobbs looked okay some games. He wasn't like terrible all the time. And I don't think that he's a particularly good quarterback. I know that the media hoopla about him coming in and what he did was absolutely incredible. But I mean, that was more, I think, just kind of a fluke, to be honest. Like it was just like a freak performance.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that means that Josh Dobbs is like a good quarterback that I want to like run my offense.
Sure.
So I don't know. I kind of like go back and forth on it. I don't really have too strong of a take, specifically on Kyler, because I agree with everything basically both of you guys said. I just think that there should be at least some optimism in a new system, given that they've already, in my opinion, kind of outperformed what they already had, like talent wise, to start, even though the record doesn't necessarily reflect that. Defensively, though, I think that Atlanta's probably going to have a lot of success running the ball. And so I think that could kind of dictate some of this game here. Cardinals, right now have been fourth worst in success rate. 4 backs go over 100 yards, 6 to go over 80. They're fine against the pass. They've been getting better. So I don't know. I think that if Atlanta has success on the ground, to kind of alleviate some of the issues with Heineke potentially. So, yeah, I don't know. Kind of a stay away in hindsight because this didn't move to a number where you guys can make a half bet. I wish we took this game off the show sheet, as Nat H here I think is implying, but always fun to talk about a shitty game here, and there aren't honestly that many more other good games. So
yeah, I know that we like missed anything that's obvious play here, but is there anything else on the board, Clark, that you like that you want to talk about here for week 10?
Well, I gave one leg of a teaser, so I always have to give out the other leg. And for me, that's Bills on Monday Night Football. They're -7.5 at home against the Broncos. I would play that -1.5 in a teaser with any other leg you can possibly find. I'd probably, mix and match it, because the Bills at 5-4, I mean, their season, like they lose to the Broncos, their season is over. And, that kind of like, well, if they lose this one, like motivational angle doesn't tend to turn a bad team into a good team. But it does turn a underperforming, very good team into a good performance. And I think that's the difference here is the Bills are a very, very good team, but they haven't been delivering the results. Like things like, Dalton Kincaid fumbling on the 10-yard line of Cincinnati, Josh Allen's weird interceptions. These things tend to swing outcomes, but they're not necessarily predictive of future performance. So I think this is a spot at home on Monday night where the Bills take care of business. So I would tease that with the Bengals, tease that with whatever other teaser leg you like. But as far as sides and totals, I'm still kind of processing, working my way through the slate.
Yeah, a couple legs that I like, and well, the one is gone, but I still like the Vikings. Teasing the Vikings at home against the Saints. The Saints find unique ways to keep games close. I feel like they're kind of like the Vikings last year, where the Vikings just like refused to win by margin basically last year. I just don't think that's really what's happening with the Saints at all. So I like the Vikings in this spot. The Josh Dobbs stuff another week. Been really impressed by the Vikings defense. So if you can get the Vikings, it's 2.5 across the board and you get that out to 8.5. I think it's a great teaser leg. I grabbed the Cowboys when it was 15.5, kind of an unusual teaser leg, but it brought it down to 9.5, which again, I guess 14 and 10 are key numbers. So not a typical, Wong teaser leg. But we brought the Cowboys down to 9.5. So I like that one quite a bit. Now we're up to 16.5. I don't like it quite as much, but I, again, still think it's a good spot there. So you guys laughing at me like that. That's not a good teaser. I mean, come on.
It's not. You don't get enough value.
I think the math would disagree with you.
I know. I'm not saying it's a Wong teaser leg. I think it's still a good teaser leg.
Just play the Cowboys, man.
They're going to win by 30 anyways. Danny DeVito's.
I needed to pair some of my Vikings players.
My numbers actually like the Giants in that game. I can't bring myself to
burn your numbers. Throw them in the fire.
You can't do that.
I can't do it. No, the Seattle-Washington over is another bet that I like. This is a game where it opened 44.5. I think it's up to 45.5. I would still play it at 45.5. This is a Seattle offense that has the weapons and quarterback to capitalize against a weak Commanders secondary. The Patriots did not have that. The Commanders defense has been bad all year, especially the back end, but their front four has been getting enough pressure to make it a little bit difficult. Now they've lost Montez Sweat and Chase Young. So you're going to have Geno Smith with all the time in the world to pick apart a bad secondary with 3 really good receivers. The Seahawks are going to score. And then on the other side, I've been really impressed with the shift in the Commanders offense schematically. I think they're, getting the ball out faster for how shorter dropbacks, lateral movement, things like that. So I do think Washington can either, keep up or play from behind. Either way, I think the points get put on the board here.
Yeah. Don't mind that at all. I think, again, with teams going so throw pass heavy, I mean, especially the Commanders, it just allows for more plays, right? Incomplete passes, stop the clock, that allows for more play volume, and those things all lead to more drives, more plays, and more opportunities. I like the Raiders team total under 17.5. Poo-pooing my teaser look, hey, they don't all have to be plus EV. They don't have to all be perfect Wong teasers. You can go pound sand when the Cowboys win by 10 and we're cruising comfortably, paired with my math-approved Vikings at 8.5. So sometimes you just got to pick the right side, and Cowboys under 10 is the right side. But I like the Raiders team total under 17.5 here too. I think Aiden O'Connell's been eating sacks, even though he hasn't had a big sample, but he's got a 41.2% pressure to sack rate in his limited time here. He's been pressured 17 times. He's taken 7 sacks. It's not great against the Jets defense that can just kind of spam the passer here. So I'll probably bet the board in terms of Jets to get sacks here. Probably quarter at plus money. There'll probably be 3 or 4 guys there. So Connor, what do you like here on the board?
Yeah, the only thing I would add, Commanders, Seahawks. We took a little bit of piece of Seahawks there. I still like him at 6. Obviously, buying the Seahawks last week did not work out at all in any way, shape, or form. But I'm back to the well again here, and I think that we're going to see a better performance. I mean, Baltimore also shit on Detroit. I think Detroit's still a very good team. So I don't think that that's necessarily indicative of what we'll see here against Washington. I think, like Clark mentioned, New England just straight up didn't have the personnel to exploit the Commanders, and I think that Seattle has that and way more. So I think plenty of offensive success there. And then even though the Commanders I think will be throw heavy and probably drive volume, I still expect Seattle defense to play pretty well. So we'll see. I like Seattle here at -6.
Yeah. Good stuff. What else we got here? Anything else we want to talk about?
That's it for me.
Good. That's it. Yeah. All right. Good stuff. We appreciate it as always. Appreciate you hanging out. Look, hey, embarrassing as usual. Hey, appreciate it, bud. We all have a brand. We're on to yours, but we appreciate you hate watching our show. Hit the like and subscribe on the way out the door. We appreciate all the stuff. But yeah, thanks. We're We really appreciate all your time. And, again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. You might already have a sub, but if you don't, remember, 4for4.com/plans. You can use promo code BETS50 for 50% off. You probably didn't want to pay for the full price. You can hate on Twitter. But if you want to pay for, basically a quarter of a price, you can get the betting sub for, just a little bit of money, $62, probably within your budget. So for Connor and Clark, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all on Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah!